What's going on, YouTube? Please help us out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Tap the notification bell so you get notified every time we go live. Our 12-team head-to-head point draft is up next. Welcome into another live draft edition of Fantasy Baseball today. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and Chris Towers here for our final 12-team head-to-head points draft of the offseason. And this one we're playing out. It's one of our 2 listener leagues and should be a ton of fun. Now, I did not plan this. I randomly generated the draft order last night. Chris and Scott are drafting back-to-back at picks 7 and 8. So I'm hoping this causes quite a bit of controversy tonight. What's going on? Are you ready?
There is going to be no shortage of controversy this draft. And I don't think it'll have so much to do with Chris and I picking back-to-back, because the thing about these podcast listeners leagues that has especially been true the past few years is they end up mimicking all the things we've told them to do. So like we're totally out of our comfort zone because all of our habits are they're the rugs pulled out from under us. We're ending up with a bunch of players we never draft usually, and it's just the whole thing's just very uncomfortable. So I hope it's entertaining, but it's it's going to be stressful, I would say.
Yeah, the thing about the podcast listeners league is the people who are in the league listen to the podcast.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I hope we got a bunch of know-it-alls who think we're full of it and just want to do their own thing. That's my preferred scenario. People who hate us.
I actually really think Ryan Mountcastle is a great pick this year. So I hope someone listening here winds up drafting him. Chris, how you doing, bud?
Good.
He's good. All right.
Let's get the show on the road.
Let me set this up before we get started here. Again, this is a 12-team head-to-head point draft, 21 rounds, standard head-to-head point scoring on CBS. 1 point for each of a walk, single, run scored, RBI, hit by pitch, 2 points for a double, 3 for a triple, 4 for a home run, 2 points for a stolen base, minus half a point for hitter strikeouts, and -1 for caught stealing. On the pitcher side, 3 points per inning, half a point for pitcher strikeouts, 7 points for a win, 7 points for a save, 3 for a quality start, -5 for a loss, -1 for each of a walk allowed, hit, earned run, or a hit batter. We also have the standard head-to-head points lineup on CBS, 1 of each infield position, 3 outfielders, 1 utility bat, 5 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, 5 bench spots, and 3 IL spots. The participants in tonight's draft: Kevin Richardson, Nick Waterbury, Garrett Hoff, Scott Wolf, 2 Scott W. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if I could just interject real quick.
Sure.
You see the chat in the lower right-hand corner of the draft room? You notice how names are displayed? First name, last initial. Scott Wolf and Scott W. look exactly the same. Scott Wolf has so much power over me right now. It's unbelievable, because everybody who sees Scott W. there is going to think it's me. It's probably not, because I'm here talking, doing a podcast. It's probably Scott Wolf. So I just want to clarify that up front in case this guy goes, totally bonkers on me.
It's
not me.
Scott Wolf under the bus.
It's a different Scott W.
That's what they all say. Other participants: Joel Woods, Jamie Campbell, Mary Wilkes, Elliot Freeman, Ante Jerison, and of course, Scott, Chris, and myself. I'm drafting 2nd overall. Chris is 7th, and Scott is 8th. All right. I think we're good to go. Scott, I know you have commish eligibility. So do I. But
I'm in a Scott W sandwich.
Let's do it. Oh, a Scott W sandwich. Very nice. All right. The draft is started up here. And for those listening on the podcast side of things, we're going to break this down into 2 different parts, a 2-part podcast. So hour 1 and hour 2. So be on the lookout for the second part of this podcast as well. Juan Soto goes 1st overall, as I expected, and listening to the rankings thus far. And I'm going to go ahead and select Vladimir Guerrero. I am not going to wind up with the profit pocket unless they are one of my utility batters. Normally in this format, I take a pitcher in the 1st round. This is the first time I haven't done it in a while, but I'm just going to go ahead and take the player who scored the most points in this format last year, more than any other hitter, more than any other pitcher. And I select Vladimir Guerrero. 3rd overall is Garrett Cole. And we are,
Garrett Cole should be by far the number 1 starting pitcher in this format. Corbin Burns, you can make a case on a per inning basis in a roto league, but the innings gap between him and Garrett Cole should still be pretty significant.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're close, Chris, on a per game basis, but overall points, I think will definitely favor Garrett Cole this season. After Garrett Cole went Jose Ramirez, 4th overall, Trey Turner, 5th overall, and then Bryce Harper. And Chris, you are on the clock, the meat of the Scott sandwich.
Delicious. And I'm going to go with Mike Trout.
You've got to do it, right?
He's in this format. I think he's arguably the best player on a per game basis. If it's not him, it's, Juan Soto. And there are concerns about Mike Trout's ability to stay healthy, but when you're picking 7th overall and you get a crack at a guy who could be the best player, I think you have to take it.
Yeah, especially, again, like you said, in this format, the OBP is just fantastic. The OPS is going to be awesome. Just stay on the field. I have Mike Trout as a top 6 player in this format as well. And Scott, you are on the clock, 8th overall. Are we going with a starting pitcher or a hitter?
Don't think he's going with a starting pitcher.
You don't think so?
I think he might.
I didn't expect to go with the starting pitcher because I thought others would reach in and grab starting pitchers ahead of me here, it being a head-to-head points leagues. More than one pitcher would go in the first 7 picks, right? But I think Trout was the last hitter I was looking to take in this range. I think I'm actually going Max Scherzer. Somebody already in round 1, I'm having to do something I have yet to do in any other draft, mock or otherwise, which is take Max Scherzer.
He averaged fewer than 6 innings per start last season.
You were mentioning Garrett Cole over Corbin Burns. I mean, Max Scherzer, we know he's a workhorse, and I'm not worried about that. I think he's going to be, unless this is the year he falls off, which could happen anytime for any pitcher, frankly, old or otherwise. Max Scherzer should be great. So yeah, he's my pick.
I just realized that I am the outcast here by having Corbin Burns ranked higher than Max Scherzer in this format. So I see the argument, Scherzer's done it for so long. He's much more proven. I get it. But man, Corbin Burns was just so awesome
it's the innings.
Yeah. But look, if Burns can get up to 180, then yeah, I think he'll be in the discussion for, he'll be a top 3 starting pitcher. I think if he can get to that threshold. All right. After you took Scherzer, we see Freddie Freeman, Corbin Burns, and Walker Buehler. All right, so those starting pitchers starting to go off the board. And as we've mentioned many times this offseason, the past couple of years, whenever talking about head-to-head points leagues, you typically see starting pitching get pushed up the draft board in this format because reliable starting pitching, elite starting pitching just has the potential to score so many points. And it's a shallow hitting lineup that you could find really strong players on the waiver wire as well. So yes, pitching will go relatively early in this draft. And there you go. We see it at the turn as well, where Mookie Betts and Brandon Woodruff go off the board, and we are into round 2. So we had 4 starting pitchers go in the first round, and so far 2 here in the second round. Brandon Woodruff and Jacob deGrom.
Right. So I think, and we haven't, obviously we've drafted a lot more for category scoring than point scoring because we have to account for roto and head-to-head categories when, point scoring, you're just talking about a head-to-head league usually. So it just, we haven't drafted as much for this scoring format, but I think you're seeing here like a clear tier among hitters in this particular format where you don't have to extend yourself for stolen bases so much. So you're not going to put Ohtani up with that group. You're not going to put Bichette up with that group. You're not going to put Kyle Tucker up with that group. And, basically once Harper and Trout went, we see this run on the high end arms that I think makes sense. And that fortunately I had to kick off, as uncomfortable as it was.
And Scott, you are back up on the clock. So after Jacob deGrom went 14th overall, Rafael Devers and Shane Bieber. I know, Scott, you probably would have loved to get yourself some Rafi Devers. So what are we doing instead?
Yeah, actually, if I hadn't gone Max Scherzer in round 1, Devers would have been the pick at 8th overall.
Ooh,
so
all right.
That's, yeah. Like I said, Ohtani's not part of this group in a head-to-head points league. I'll take Bichette. I'll take Bo Bichette. That seems like a pretty easy one at this point, especially having already taken a starting pitcher, especially since my top tier just got depleted. That starting pitcher with Shane Bieber going off the board. You're right. I would have preferred to have Devers, but Bichette, he gets downgraded in this format because the plate discipline is suspect, but he's still going to be super productive
Yeah, he was still awesome last year. 3.5 fantasy points per game in this format. Whatever he lacks in terms of walks and even plate discipline, he will make up in home runs, total bases, scoring a bunch of runs and RBI. And Chris, you are on the clock here, 18th overall. Your first pick was Mike Trout. What do we got next?
Yeah, I mean, Shohei Ohtani is my number one player on the board, and he's utility only.
Angel stack?
But I'm going to do it. Yeah, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. Let's get the top of the Angels lineup locked in. And look, I don't love locking in a utility-only player this early in a head-to-head points league, the shallow format. And only 3 outfield spots especially makes it really hard to lock up that utility spot. But, for all the talk about Shohei Ohtani not being quite as valuable in this format, he was still a 570-point player. So it's not, you can't say that he wasn't good in this format. He was excellent in this format. And that's comparable to what the top remaining pitchers were. Zach Wheeler was actually more in the 580 to 590 point range. Julio Urias was 560. So I think, we don't expect Ohtani to be as good as he was last season, but I think there's still a gap between him and the other hitters, unless you really believe in Marcus Semien, which I don't. I believe in Shohei Ohtani more. So Ohtani, still the right pick there for me.
All right. And Chris, I would never do anything to embarrass you here on the podcast, but do you remember last year in this very league, you drafted Shohei Ohtani, but you traded him to me. Do you remember what you traded him to me for?
Probably something that wasn't as good as Shohei Ohtani, I would guess.
Yeah. It was Keston Hiura.
Sure. That sounds like a thing some dumb idiot would have done.
I just remembered it off the top of my head because I know you drafted him in this format last year as well, and I think you might have either had too many pitchers or too many utility bats.
This is the thing.
Why? Why did you have to do that? Why did you have to do that?
This is the thing.
Who is that? Who are you? This is not good. Nick Waterbury. Why would you select Sandy Alcantara and steal him from me?
All right.
These are podcast listeners, Frank.
Go ahead, Chris. You can.
They listened.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm better at drafting than managing, I guess.
All right. First tilt session of the draft here. I really just planned on, just let Sandy make it to me in round 2. Do I want to take an outfielder? Do I want to double tap starting pitcher? That's a real bummer, man. This is not great. You know what? I'm going to go starting pitcher, but it's not nearly as fun, but it's all good. Sorry, Frank, I wanted Acuna. Well, it's all right, man. I'll forgive you this once. I took Zach Wheeler, 23rd overall.
I mean, look, for what it's worth.
Players. Yeah.
Wheeler was 110 points better than Sandy Alcantara last season in this format. That's about 3 points per start. That's pretty significant. I kind of think 500 is the very, very good mark in this format. 550 is probably the elite. And Alcantara didn't hit 500 last season in 33 starts for what it's worth. I mean, wins and losses play a big part of that. And, he was only 8 for 13 in wins and losses last season. We expect that to be better, even if the Marlins are bad, but that's not an insignificant factor.
All right. At the turn, I've got to talk. I'm trying to figure out what to do here and figure this out at the same time. All right. So I took Zach Wheeler. Then at the turn, Luis Robert and Lucas Giolito, the double White Sox tap there. I don't often draft Julio Urias or Aaron Nola, and I don't think that I'm going to either here. So I'm going to select Yordan Alvarez, and he was the one that I was really looking at with the previous pick. I love Luis Robert as well. I think he gets downgraded a little bit in this format because I think he's still going to strike out probably a quarter of the time. Yordan Alvarez just would not surprise me if he puts up some kind of crazy season like what Vlad just did last year. Just like elite 4 category contributor, and especially in this format, we're not talking about categories, but his plate discipline is strong. He's going to hit a lot of home runs. He's going to get on base, and the counting stats are going to be fantastic in that Astros lineup. So I don't typically have just one starting pitcher through 3 rounds of a head-to-head points league, but that's where we're at. I've got Zach Wheeler, Yordan Alvarez, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And 27th overall, Pete Alonso. All right. That's probably Before Olsen, yeah.
Yeah.
It's earlier than we're used to.
Yeah. It's fine. I think there's more. I don't know. Alonso obviously reduced his strikeouts quite a bit last year too, not to the extent Olsen did. But I think the distinction between them is, I put Olsen a little further ahead of Alonso in points than I do in Roto, where they're closer to identical. But it's not, I can't gripe about it too much. Alonso going ahead.
All right. After Alonso goes 27th overall, Julio Urias, Ozzy Albies, Matt Olson, and Chris, you're back on the clock. You have 2 hitters thus far. You have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. Yep. That's a tough spot to be in because I think the top end of pitchers are mostly gone. I'm actually starting to talk myself out of Aaron Nola. He was someone I was higher on than the consensus, but man, that Phillies defense could be really, really bad. So it's just a little difficult to get too excited about him. So now I'm trying to figure out, do I want to go against my gut, which would be to just go away from starting pitcher? Do I want to reach for what I think is the top of the next tier at starting pitcher? Do I want to make Scott upset? There's a lot of different ways I could go here. I am going to grab a starting pitcher so Scott can have Salvador Perez if he wants him.
That's my rule, baby. You knew. I was going to ask, what's my rule, Chris? What's my rule, Frank? Here we are, late in round 3. Salvador Perez is on the board. Doesn't matter the format. Doesn't matter the build I have going on.
You're going to take Salvador Perez.
I'm taking him. Yes. The biggest advantage you can get at any position. And the advantage is mine in a league that I care about. Not just
for what it's worth, in this format, he's only broken 400 points once in his career. It was 504 last season. Mm-hmm. So, if he regresses, the skill set is not super conducive to this format. It's like,
don't try to undermine my pick, Chris.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's not hard to imagine a world in which Will Smith plays the same number of if Will Smith played the same number of games as Salvador Perez. It's not hard to imagine a world in which Will Smith outscores him. The problem there is Will Smith's probably going to play 30 fewer games at least.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, do you buy the breakout from Salvador Perez 2 years ago or not? Because 2 years ago when it happened, obviously 60-game season, he's not breaking 500 points. So, Did it happen? Was it legit? I say it was. And
he was on pace for like 540 in that season over 160 games.
And catchers aren't supposed to break 500 points, right? Like a 400-point catcher probably goes in round 3.
Mm-hmm. Chris selected Robbie Ray again. Scott selected Salvador Perez. And then we see Aaron Judge, George Springer, and Austin Riley off the board there. Chris, I thought you might have thought about taking George Springer, but you just don't want to fill up your outfield spots too early. He really is fantastic in this format, though.
I would have been perfectly happy to take him in the next round. And in fact, that's what my hope was, that I would be able to take him, because in a league where we're not playing against people who listen to our podcast regularly, he probably makes it to the 4th round. But yeah, he should be phenomenal in this format. The counting stats at the top of that lineup should be ridiculous. He's got good plate discipline. Yeah, George Springer was on pace for about 560 points last season.
All right. And then Aaron Nola goes to finish out round 3. And Marcus Semien starts us off here round 4, 37th overall. I recently added Aaron Nola to my Bust 2.0 article as well. And I probably should not care about spring training at all. He's allowed 5 home runs already in spring training. Last year, he allowed the highest home run per 9 of his career, more fly balls than ever before. There's just so much inconsistency year over year with Aaron Nola. He's got a fantastic curveball. Fastball's not good. Changeup comes and goes. I don't know. The defense now behind him is not great. It's a tough division to pitch in. It's just, I don't know.
Sour. I hear it. I hear it in your voice. It's cracking.
Yeah.
Well, and just
I don't know, man.
The defense is just it could be a real problem. I mean, that's not a nothing concern. This is a team that added 2 of the worst defensive outfielders who are on the free agent market. Those guys are going to, Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos are going to hit a bunch of home runs, but that
one's
could be
going to be a DH for what it's worth.
Sure, but this was already a team that was. But this was already a team that was starting a DH, somewhere in Alec Bohm.
Yeah,
so,
and they may not be this year.
Yeah, it just there's not there are not a lot of good defensive players on that team. There aren't a lot of passable defensive players on that team.
I feel like look, the Phillies had the worst defense last year. So just law of averages, it's hard to imagine them being worse than the worst.
But they did get worse.
On paper, they did.
In terms of the
theory,
players,
if everybody's exactly the same as who they were. Who was their left fielder last year? Because it's really just left field that's changed, right?
Andrew McCutchen.
Was he left field? I guess that's probably better.
I believe so.
Yeah. So that's one position. But they may upgrade at third base if they start with Bryson Stott instead of Alec Boehm. I got to make a pick, by the way.
Yeah, let me catch people up, Scott, and then you can think about who you want to select. Marcus Semien was the start of this round, and then Corey Seager, Cedric Mullins, and Kevin Gausman. And now, Scott, you're back up. You have Max Scherzer, Bo Bichette, and Salvador Perez.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of a run on pitching here. And, oh boy, I'm going to have to make this decision fast. Okay, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to take Charlie Morton. There's no way I'm getting Charlie Morton for a discount with this group, you know?
Yeah,
the most hyped player on this podcast, probably.
I definitely was not hoping to get him at the end of the fourth round, but
yeah.
I knew it was a pipe dream anyway. You know, again, drafting against the listeners, you guys love them too. And that brings us to Chris, who also has 2 hitters and 1 pitcher, Robbie Ray, who you selected in the previous round. What are we doing here, Chris? Are we looking at another pitcher or a hitter? Are there any hitters that stand out for you? You are muted, sir.
Not necessarily a ton of hitters who stand out for me at this point, but I don't know if I want one of the pitchers in this range. It's kind of no man's land for me. So I'm just going to take my top ranked player, which is Xander Bogaerts, and just move on. And except that I'm probably going to get 500-ish points from him, and hopefully that'll be enough.
You know that you could have just selected 21-year-old Xander Bogaerts instead and Wander Franco, Chris.
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts didn't hit for much power early in his career either. That's probably about what he was at 21.
Oh, come on.
FWIW. Wander Franco averaged 3.32 points per game last year. Xander Bogaerts averaged 3.12. I would have taken Bogaerts first too, but I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I mean, Bogaerts had a weird RBI season last year. Like, he was in this really good lineup, and he only had 169 runs plus RBI. I don't think I expect that to be the same again. He had 227 combined of those in 2019. Yes, he wasn't quite as good, but I think Xander Bogaerts is going to be better than he was last season.
All right, let's see what has happened since Scott selected Charlie Morton. Chris, you selected Xander Bogaerts, Max Fried, and then Josh Hader goes 44th overall. And I don't mean to. I'm not going to pick on anyone's picks, obviously, here, but, we've got to talk about the strategy side of things. And Scott, this is typically earlier than we're used to seeing a legit relief pitcher closer type go in a head-to-head points league.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we think they go too soon in roto leagues where they tend to go in round 3 or 4. The first 2, Hader and Hendricks, in points leagues, I think it's even less justifiable because there are other options for the relief pitcher spots. First of all, every team can only have 2, so nobody's going to get 3 or 4. There's just 2 RP spots for everybody. You can include starting pitch or relief pitcher eligible starting pitchers like Ranger Suarez and Luis Severino. So that, smaller group that needs to be drafted and a bigger number to select from. And plus the advantages that Hader gives you in the ratio stats, for as minimal as they are in Roto, they're almost, I'm not going to say they're entirely irrelevant in points leagues, but much more of the pitcher's production comes from just how often he gets a save.
Yep.
After Josh Hader went, we see Logan Webb, Jose Barrios, and then I selected Justin Verlander, 47th overall. It's very early.
I thought about taking Justin Verlander with my last pick. I decided not to, but I thought about it. Strongly considered.
And yeah, so I recently, just last night, I moved him up to SP 15 in the ranks. Sounds completely aggressive, maybe even borderline egregious for a 39-year-old coming back from Tommy John surgery, but he's looked like himself all of spring training. And this is something that we mentioned early in the offseason, that if he looks like himself, he's going to rocket up draft boards, and rightfully so. Look, my first 2 starting pitchers are Zach Wheeler and Justin Verlander. 2 months into the season, I might have like 2 arms combined from my starting pitchers. But, look, if they're both healthy, they both should be standouts in this format. So I moved Verlander just up behind Charlie Morton, 14th and 15th, respectively, as starting pitchers in my ranks. And I feel good about it. So I nab him as my SP2. And then at the turn, we see Lance Lynn and Frankie Montas to kick off round 5. I selected Wander Franco, and then Alex Bregman goes. So I have 3 hitters thus far: Vladimir Guerrero, Wander Franco, and Yordan Alvarez, to go along with 2 starting pitchers, Zach Wheeler and Justin Verlander.
Yeah, the way I feel about Justin Verlander at this point is like, the only questions he could have answered at this point, he's answered. Does he look like himself? Whether that means he's going to make it through a whole season is completely unknowable, but I'm not sure his risk is that much higher than the other starting pitchers in that range. I mean, they're starting pitchers. Their risk of injury is high to begin with. So yeah, it's hard to come up with like a really strong case against moving him, significantly higher at this point.
After I selected Wander Franco, Alex Bregman, Teoscar Hernandez, great value on Teoscar, 52nd overall. Freddie Peralta, Nick Castellanos, somebody I thought about as well. I really came into this draft thinking I wanted to get players that I haven't wound up with in any other drafts, and players that I really like. And so far, outside of Sandy, I've been able to do that. So Nick Castellanos was one of those players I was considering as well for that reason. Chris, you are back up. It is round 5, and you have 13 seconds left to pick.
Here comes the money.
You're falling.
That means you're muted, Chris.
Oh, I was just saying I'm really struggling over and over and over again. So you aren't really missing out on anything.
And then I hit the wrong button. I meant to hit your Joey Gallo song, and I hit my my Shane O'Mac music. But
I like the pick you made.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic pick. Chris Bryant, 55th overall, and I believe I'll pull up his ADP over the past 2 weeks at the NFBC, but I believe it's inside of the top 60 picks. Like, this is around.
He was a guy prior to 2019 and even 2019. Like, he got to 490 points in 147 games. I think you just give him 500. He was consistently that kind of player before that. Last season, he didn't quite get there, but with Coors Field, 427 in 144 games, I think you can just, like, even if he's just the guy he was last year, but playing all his games at Coors Field, I think you can probably feel pretty good about him being that kind of, very, very good hitter in this format.
The ADP for Chris Bryant last 2 weeks, 57.6. So this is right about where he goes. All right, Scott, you selected Jose Altuve. And let's check in on your team here and see what you got going on. I believe you have 3 hitters and 2 pitchers.
I do. So I'd rather have the 2 hitters and 3 pitchers, but there was people went pretty heavy on pitchers in rounds 3 and 4, so that happens. If Freddie Peralta had made it to me, I might have had a tough decision. If Chris hadn't taken Chris Bryant, I might have had a tough decision there. But Jose Altuve was actually the hitter I was considering when I eventually went Charlie Morton in round 4. I love Jose Altuve, especially in this format. Last year, the top 2 second basemen in terms of points per game, Trey Turner, of course, 3.74. Marcus Semien, a historic season for a second baseman, 3.66. Jose Altuve was right there, 3.60. He was well ahead of Ozzie Albies, 3.45. And, well, he was ahead of Ozzie Albies. He was well ahead of, like, the rest in that tier, Ketel Marte, Brandon Lau, Whit Merrifield. So I think his lack of strikeouts, obviously scoring a ton of runs, near the top of the Astros lineup. He's the candidate to be right there with the very top second baseman.
After Jose Altuve, Nolan Arenado, Joe Musgrove, and Paul Goldschmidt. I think it's great value on Goldschmidt as well. I don't see a huge difference between him and Olsen and Alonso, and those guys went in round 3, and Paul Goldschmidt just went pick 59. So.
Yeah, I think it's less of an upside, weighing the relative upside of the 3 is risk, because Paul Goldschmidt, he looked like he was fading, he was cooked. And then he has this resurgent season last year at 34. Where did that come from?
Did you guys see, by the way, on Wednesday afternoon, the Cardinals scored 29 runs against the Washington Nationals. I only bring it up because I saw that Paul Goldschmidt had a massive game. I think he went 4 for 4, a home run and a steal, which, Scott, do you remember what we called that last year?
I don't. Oh, a sock and a shoe.
A sock and a shoe for Paul Goldschmidt. Our first mention of a sock and a shoe this season has been for one Paul Goldschmidt. At the
that was about 25 runs per major league caliber player that the Washington Nationals currently have in their projected infield. So, I think that's pretty good.
Right. After Paul Goldschmidt went Whit Merrifield to finish out round 5, and then Liam Hendricks, Byron Buxton, and Trevor Story, which both picks, I think, just elicited a sigh from Chris Towers.
Actually, more Story than Buxton. Even though I already have a shortstop, I was really hoping Story would fall a couple more spots, and I could, eventually put him in that second base spot.
Good idea.
Yeah, because he was consistently a 550-ish point player prior to last season, and I don't think he'll be that good, but the counting stats should be really, really good with the Boston Red Sox. The only concern there, I guess, would be that it does look like he's going to bat in the lower half of the lineup, which is
so weird, man. They're projecting him to bat 6th. They said he is going to bat 2nd against left-handed pitching. So I was watching the Red Sox game earlier. They brought that up. But, man, Enrique Hernandez, find someone who loves you the way that Alex Cora loves Enrique Hernandez. Why is this guy?
Look, that's the
fine ball player, but why does he lead off instead of Trevor Story, for example?
That's the Boricua connection, man.
And this doesn't get mentioned enough when we're obsessing over line. Not just us, but everybody who analyzes these things obsesses over lineups at the start of the year. Starting lineups change constantly over the course of the season. I doubt Trevor Story is going to bat 6th all year. So I wouldn't sweat it so much. I was frustrated here because I just got sniped on Carlos Rodon. But
okay, so he wasn't going to make it to me.
No,
that's
no chance. No chance. These were the last 2 pitchers in a tier for me. Carlos Rodon was one. Yu Darvish is the other. I would rather had Rodon, but I'll go Darvish here as my 3rd starting pitcher.
All right. Yeah. Starting pitcher. Oh, gosh. It's drying up a little bit here. All right. So Carlos Rodon went 64th overall. Scott selects Yu Darvish. And we are up to Chris's pick. This is 66th overall. And Chris, I believe you only have one starting pitcher to this point.
I believe that is accurate. Yes, I do only have one. Yep, Robert Ray. And I'm not going to reach for any of the other guys who are here. So just going to keep moving on and fill up those starting pitcher spots later, which, that's fine. Well,
yeah, I think it's easier to justify this year than last year.
I'm really struggling, though.
We've got about 10 seconds left here.
All right, I'm just going to get an edge at the catcher spot and take Will Smith.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
It's a fine pick, yeah.
Yeah, look, he needs to get better, I think, to really make himself stand out in this format. But the play discipline's really good, and if the playing time increases and he can get over 500 plate appearances, then I think you can start talking about him as a real difference maker in this format.
All right. And after you selected Will Smith, Alek Manoah goes off the board. I should probably start thinking about what I would like to do. I have 3 hitters and 2 pitchers thus far. I was kind of looking at Ketel Marte, who
I'm a little surprised Chris didn't take Ketel Marte, because I after taking Altuve, I gave some thought to taking him as an outfielder. Marte.
Yeah.
I certainly considered it.
He's great in this format too. It's, someone who's going to hit for a high batting average, even if he doesn't hit a ton of home runs.
Great plate discipline.
Those will be doubles. He'll walk. He'll get on base. Hopefully score some runs. I don't know how many in that Diamondbacks lineup, but he is very, very good in this format.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping he would get traded this year.
And instead, he signs an extension.
Yeah, look, I get it.
One thing that's happening here early on is this is going to be one of those drafts where I'm going to have to get creative at 3rd base, because after that Jose Altuve pick that I was patting myself on the back for, the last 3rd baseman in that tier, Nolan Arenado, went, I think, with the very next pick. So Alex Bregman, who's more of a points league specialist, went earlier in round 5. Riley, of course, was already gone. And then Arenado went at the end of round 5. So, I'm in an uncomfortable spot here at third base. And I don't know if that means going for Anthony Rendon, who, this is the better format for him too. Or
he's
been
an elite player in this format before.
Yes. If you trust him to bounce back, then this is the format where you're more eager to invest in him. But I don't necessarily trust him to bounce back is the thing. So I might wait even longer for somebody like Matt Chapman. We'll see.
All right, let's catch people up. After Ketel Marte, Brandon Lau, and JT Realmuto off the board. And I am wrestling with something right now, which I don't want to reveal until after I make both of my picks. I'd love to take Lindor, but I took Wander Franco. Shortstop is so deep. This is what I was just talking about on yesterday's podcast. It's tough, man. I'm going to select Jorge Polanco and as my second baseman. We did a few mock drafts this offseason where I just wound up with a dreadful second baseman, and I don't want to do that. So Jorge Polanco is someone who also very good in this format, makes a lot of contact. Don't think he's going to hit as many home runs as he did last year, even if that's 25 homers, strong batting average, good plate discipline in an improving Twins lineup. I'd be perfectly fine taking him at this point in the draft.
What we just saw was Starling Marte go 72nd overall. And this is not Starling Marte's best format, but that's a really good value. He just kept falling and falling and falling and falling and falling. And he probably shouldn't have as far. And I passed on him several times when he was technically the top player in my rankings. So I'm just as guilty of that as anybody, but that's a really good value.
This is generally not regarded as a better format, but he was so prolific as a base stealer last year. 3.77 points per game is what Starling Marte averaged in this format last year. The only outfielders that were better were Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Bryce Harper, and Ronald Acuna. Starling Marte was the fourth best outfielder in this format on a per game basis last year. So, I was kind of hoping people would be scared of that oblique injury and he can make it back to me in round 7.
But he's playing in games now.
If Darvish wasn't there, I would have taken him in round 6. I agree. That was a good pick there. Who made that pick? Should give him credit.
That was, I believe,
Kevin Richardson.
Kevin Richardson. The thing, I was just looking at Kevin's team. He's now filled up all 3 of his outfield spots, and we're seven rounds into the draft. So he's
that's
got 3
tough.
outfielders, a shortstop, and 3 starting pitchers. So I mean, hey, if you're just taking the best values, Starling Marte was one of them. And by the way, I was checking in on the Mets game earlier as well, and I saw him steal a base. They're not going to let this guy run if he's still feeling the effects of this oblique. He said he felt something in his rib. Look, if he's running, I think the guy is healthy. So that is a fantastic pick, 72nd overall. To start round 7, Carlos Correa went, and then hit the music.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
I selected Shane McClanahan. He was my top-ranked starting pitcher available. He's my SP3. Probably not his best format. I don't know how deep he's going to go into each of his starts, but I think when he pitches, he will be efficient and he should earn wins with the Tampa Bay Rays behind him. And I needed a pitcher, so I take Shane O'Mac there. After I took him, JD Martinez, Luis Castillo, Framber Valdez, great pick. I kind of was hoping he would make it back to me a little bit later on. And then Francisco Lindor, 78th overall in the 7th round. I love it. Chris, you're up.
All right. You ready for me to take someone I have not drafted at all this year?
I am ready. Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every time you've talked about him, you said that you can't watch him pitch.
I know. I just can't put the TV on when he's pitching. But the potential volume that he can give you, the fact that a lot of the guys in this range at starting pitcher, Dylan Cease, who's who we're talking about, the fact that a lot of the guys in this range at starting pitcher come with injury question marks. Like Dylan Cease, the question is in innings, but if he's able to be a little more efficient and he can throw 180 innings, he could be a 240 strikeout guy.
Oh, yes.
So, it's a bet on a talented player when I, really did need a starting pitcher. And this is why you don't necessarily love to be in a spot where you feel like you need to draft a specific type of player.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Chris, and one that we haven't really hit on much this offseason. But when you draft a balanced roster, it allows you in the middle and late rounds to be versatile and just draft whatever you want, whatever position you might need or whatever category you might need. You know, if you take a lot of pitching early, then you're going to find yourself, oh, I have to take hitters here or vice versa. So, you know, when you have a balanced roster, it allows you that flexibility later on in your drafts.
And it's especially tough in this format when you've got fewer lineup spots. So like I could have taken Tim Anderson, but I don't have anywhere to put him. I literally would not have a starting spot for him because I've already got a shortstop. I've already got my utility spot. So that's also, you know, one of the downfalls of taking Shohei Ohtani where I did, which, hey, I mean, it was a great value, right? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17th overall Shohei Ohtani, even in a points league. That's quite good. But it can handcuff you a little bit.
I have the solution, Chris. Just play Ohtani as a pitcher.
There you go.
All right. After you selected Dylan Cease, we see Scott selected Brian Reynolds, then Jonathan India, Pablo Lopez, Christian Yelich, and then Jose Abreu to finish out round 7. Scott, talk to me about Brian Reynolds, someone who also seems like he is built for this format.
Yeah, great plate discipline. His great across the board numbers. I think if he falls short in anything, it's home runs, and you're not going to miss those as much in this format because he's going to be getting a lot of extra base hits on the whole. So, you know, I'm perfectly happy with him as my number 1 outfielder. I was also considering Pablo Lopez there as my 4th starting pitcher. And he ended up going 2 picks later. So I'm not going to get him on the bounce back, clearly. But yeah, I'm still happy with it. No regrets. No regrets.
No regrets, like the Snickers commercial. To start off round 8, Trevor Rogers, Ranger Suarez, 86th overall, who is now the unquestioned spark in this format. Starting pitcher with relief pitcher eligibility. Luis Severino is dealing with that arm injury right now. Ranger Suarez, he's a little bit behind. He's going to make his spring debut over the weekend. But once he returns, I think he is unquestionably the top spark available in this format.
Although if you were just ranking them for like week 1 and 2, I might put Kopech ahead of him. The concern is can Kopech be better than him? The concern is, you know, how many points is he going to score over the course of a season?
Right. Yeah.
Well, Kopech's a little behind too.
As long as Kopech's in the rotation, he should be very effective. It's just how deep is he going to go into his starts as well? I mean, that's something that also matters quite a bit in this format. Obviously, you know, you get 3 points per inning pitched. So the more length you get out of your pitchers, the better it is. After Ranger Suarez, Eloy Jimenez and Tim Anderson. So, all right, a little double tap there on the White Sox. And again, 2, I think, great values. You know, Eloy, Tim Anderson is, you know, might not be their best format, but, you know, like Starling Marte, maybe these guys are being, you know, pushed down a little bit too much in this draft. Scott, you were up in the 8th round. Let's take a gander at your team. I know Brian Reynolds was your previous pick. You have 3 starting pitchers, Scherzer, Morton, Darvish. And you have 4 hitters, Brian Reynolds, Bo Bichette, Jose Altuve, and Salvador Perez.
Not really sure what I want to do here. There's something I kind of want to do, but
I know exactly what it is.
Do you?
I wonder if it's the same guy I just put in my queue.
Ooh, you know what? I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage here because whoever's in my queue, everyone on YouTube gets to see, so I can't really do that.
I'm taking Kyle Schwarber.
Okay, so Kyle Schwarber was number 2 on my queue.
That's what I thought.
That's not who was at the top of my queue. You guys want to guess who was at the top of my queue? Frank, let's see if it was the same guy.
No. I will say it. I will say it if you draft him, because if not, I want to draft him.
Well, maybe.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yes,
it.
that was it. That was who I kind of wanted to take, but I didn't feel like I could do it without Schwarber.
Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Fernando. We didn't mention it. Yes,
the thought process is shallower format, replacement levels higher. So the time that you're spent without him is going to potentially hurt less.
Yep.
And then the fact that it's a shallow format also means that when he's in there, the impact he makes on your lineup is even greater because there are fewer lineup spots total.
Very true.
And the fact that it's a head-to-head points league, I mean, if you sneak into the playoffs, but you've got Fernando Tatis from, you know, week 14 on, it means you've got a free first rounder basically. So by that point, Mike Trout,
it might be week 10 on. It might not be week 14 on.
Sure. And so, you know, by that point, Mike Trout will be out of my lineup. So I can just put Fernando Tatis right back in there.
Fair enough. Just swap out one first rounder for another.
I'm kind of wishing I'd just taken him instead of Schwarber now, but
That's exactly what
I probably would have taken Schwarber if you had.
yeah.
Scott, as soon as you said I'm thinking about doing something, I was like, yep, it's
Yeah,
Fernando Tatis.
okay.
I knew.
It was literally like 2 seconds after I dropped him in my queue.
I'm not as clever as I think I am, apparently.
But I still think you made a fine pick, and Kyle Schwarber, who should be very, very good in this format as well. I think it was 3.3 fantasy points per game that he averaged last year.
Yes, that it was basically the same as Teoscar Hernandez. So if what Schwarber did last year was legitimate, then yeah, he should be a fixture in my lineup. If he regresses at all, he might become a little fringy. We'll see.
After Chris selected Fernando Tatis, we see Sean Manaea and Anthony Rendon go off the board. Third base, we've just nearly hit the wasteland area of third base. So not great right now. I should mention there are 3 IL spots in this league. So if you want to... oh, that hurt. Yasmani Grandal just went. I really wanted Grandal. He is... Look, someone that just excels in any type of OBP format, but I mean, especially last year, he averaged 3.4 fantasy points per game. Grandal did. That was 0.3 better than Salvador Perez, who was amazing, who hit 48 home runs. I mean, that's
what they call him.
How good Grandal was when he actually played.
You know what they call him?
What do they call him?
Yasmani Money Grandal.
Man, these listeners are good, man. They're crushing me. Sandy and Grandal right before my picks. This isn't great. All right, so I've got to figure out what I want to do now instead. I have 4 hitters and 3 pitchers as well. We're coming up on the end of round 8. I have one of my picks in mind. Oh, that was the pick that I had in mind. Clayton Kershaw goes 94th overall. It probably was the best that I didn't select him because I already got Zach Wheeler. I got Verlander. I've got some risk already. I don't know that Kershaw made the most sense, but he was my top pitcher available. So he was somebody that I was considering. And now I am on the clock. And do I want to do that? I'm thinking. I think I want to do that. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I've already got... This is a fun group of hitters I've got. Vlad, Jorge Polanco, Wander Franco, Yordan Alvarez. It's about to get a little bit more fun as well. I'm going to select Bobby Witt with the 95th overall pick here, and he'll be in my util spot to start the season, assuming he's on the opening day roster, but will earn third base eligibility, and then I could just slot him in as my third baseman. So,
I forgot about that.
yeah.
Oh man, because I was thinking I can't take him. I already have a shortstop. If he made it one more round, I was okay. I'll just fill my utility spot with Bobby Witt, but I needed a third baseman, so I'm definitely not as clever as I thought I was. Yeah. No, it's interesting because I wanted to say, and it just got the opportunity passed me by. When you took Jorge Polanco last round and you kind of reacted like it was a little early, I wanted to say there were 2 players that I just moved up a tier at shortstop into that already giant tier that includes like Carlos Correa and Wander Franco and Corey Seager and all of them. One of them was Jorge Polanco. The other is the guy you just took, Bobby Witt, who went in round 5 in our very last Roto mock. Go round 5 here. He probably shouldn't have gone in round 5 in that other one either. But like, he looks like the real deal, and there's no doubt he's on the opening day roster. It doesn't even seem to be a question anymore among Royals beat writers.
All right. After I selected Bobby Witt at the turn, we see Javier Baez and Joey Votto. Ooh, the profit pocket starts to get picked at there. And then I selected somebody I have not drafted a single time this offseason. Chris Bassett, 98th overall, second pick of round 9. He's my SP4 to go along with Verlander, Wheeler, Shane McClanahan. I felt like I needed a high floor play in my rotation. I was looking at a few other names who have, some breakout potential, but I feel like Chris Bassett kind of fits what my rotation needs at this point, and he's my SP4. He goes deep into his starts as well. And worry a little bit about him moving outside of Oakland, but Citi Field is still a really good park to pitch in. I think he should be mostly fine this upcoming year. Giancarlo Stanton goes, then Willy Adames, and Tyler O'Neill, another one who Roto is his better format, but I think he was devalued too long in this draft, and he lasts to pick 101. That's Tyler O'Neill in the 9th round, and I think it is a fantastic pick. Then Max Muncy goes. Chris, is that what caused your sigh?
Yeah, my hope was to take Reese Hoskins here and then Max Muncy on the way back. So I guess maybe I wasn't going to be able to get Muncy either way, but I ended up with Hoskins, who is a really good player in this format. And if he stays healthy, should be a contender for that 500 point mark that I've been talking about.
Chris, just take the profit and run, baby. Reese Hoskins there, pick 103 overall. And Max Muncy, by the way, averaged 3.4 fantasy points per game last year. That was the same amount as Ozzy Albies, who went in the 3rd round of this draft. Scott,
I would have been thrilled to have him as my second baseman.
Scott, you are up here in round 9. What do we got?
I definitely want to take a pitcher because I feel like we're about to see that position drop off again.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't sure which pitcher to take. I went with Adam Wainwright. I went with the safest option in my 40-year-old non-strikeout guy is the safest option. But there are a lot of guys dealing with injuries, let's say, who I would have considered instead. And the thing is, we think of Wainwright as not an upside guy, but he was top 10 in this format last year. He pitches deep. He wins a lot of games on a playoff caliber team. And hopefully he doesn't take a step back this year.
Adam Wainwright, by the way, was 2nd in baseball last year in innings pitched per start behind only Zach Wheeler. So again, in this format, it's not flashy. He's not going to get you the strikeouts, but a great defense behind him, great division to pitch in. He's going to go up against the Pirates and the Cubs quite a bit. So as a result, I think he should be valuable once again.
He averaged 5.5 strikeouts per start. It's not a huge number, but because he was pitching so deep into the games, it's not nothing.
It's not. Yeah. It's a point that Scott has made all offseason for, I don't want to throw names out there. Once they get selected, we talk more about them, but it's those pitchers that go deep into their starts. The K per 9 isn't necessarily high, but the raw strikeout total will be higher than you think because they throw as many innings as they do. After Scott selected Adam Wainwright, Dalton Varsho, CJ Crone, more of the profit pocket. Chris Sale, who we got good news on yesterday. Scott,
was that who you made you sigh just now, Chris Sale?
Yeah, I would have loved to have had him on the way back.
It was between him and Wainwright with that last pick.
Yeah, I just didn't think that I could afford. I thought about it as well. I don't think I could afford to take another injured pitcher. I think I needed that floor play. So again, I went with Chris Bassett to finish out round 9, Jesse Winker, and then starting off round 10, Wilson Contreras, Marcell Ozuna, and Raisel Iglesias. So I believe the 3rd closer off the board there in round 10 now. Marcell Ozuna, we haven't necessarily talked about the skill set and how much it works in this format, but he's someone who walks quite a bit as well when everything is going right. He's going to hit home runs. And if he could stay on the field, then it's someone who should excel in this format as well. So really strong pick there with Marcell Ozuna. And we are into...
Raisel Iglesias went here with the 3rd pick of round 10. Emmanuel Clase is still out there. And it seems like absurd value, but I just don't think they're going to be able to separate themselves enough to justify it. I feel like we're running out of opportunities to get a true fixture in those other spots in the lineup. And that feels like a higher priority to me.
I will point out with Raisel Iglesias at this point in the draft in round 10, last year he scored 437.5 fantasy points. And I believe when I looked this up earlier, that would have ranked as a top 24 starting pitcher, right there on the fringe as an SP2. Yeah. That's pretty valuable to get as your closer
but that's, there were a lot of guys who probably made 26 starts who had more than that, or who are fewer than that, but would have been higher. So, it's the kind of thing where unless you get 40 saves, it's really hard to stand out as a relief pitcher. It's hard.
And there are no closers who are getting 40 saves at this point. The league leader was Mark Melancon with 39 last season. Blake Snell was the next pick, and Scott, you're up.
Yeah, I hated that Blake Snell pick because I wanted to make it myself. That was the other one. I mentioned a couple different pitchers who were dealing with injury. In Snell's case, it isn't so much as an injury; it's just a late start, so he might miss his first turn through the rotation. But he seems on track otherwise. And yeah, he just went after Chris Sale went a few picks earlier, so I dipped into the profit pocket at first base, took Josh Bell. He is the third of that profit pocket to go off the board, which I think is 5 now. I think it's 5 deep. Oh, I'm sorry. He's actually the fourth of the profit pocket to go off the board. The only one who hasn't yet is the newest member, Luke Voigt.
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of some kind of reference of like a band that added somebody later on, like once they were already established. Chris, this sounds like something that you'd be great at. But before
he's the Ronnie Wood of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. After Josh Bell went, Chris, you selected Eduardo Rodriguez and Nathan Eovaldi. So some starting pitchers going off the board here. And I know both you and I, Chris, have Eduardo Rodriguez as a breakout this season.
Yeah, we've seen him hit that 500-point mark. I think innings shouldn't be much of a concern for him. He's proven to be a pretty reliable source of, I guess not necessarily innings in the past because he's had some efficiency issues, but that actually was less of an issue the past couple of years. Last season, it was mostly because of the, kind of what we believe to be bad luck that he suffered through last season. So, the peripherals mostly suggest he should have been a lot better. I think he's someone who the 200 strikeout mark is a pretty safe bet, 180 innings, and I think he'll be a solid option in either format. By the way, it might have been better to say like Billy Preston with the Beatles, famously referred to as the fifth Beatle, came in during the Let It Be sessions. Maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah. Maybe it does.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't. I have no idea.
Scott, you don't know? I don't know. After Eduardo Rodriguez, Nathan Eovaldi, and Tyler Mahle. So some pitchers going off the board here, and I'm up in 2 picks. I mean, Joe Woods and Nick Waterbury. These guys have been crushing me all draft. So, I would expect nothing less. Marcus Stroman goes, someone who I do like quite a bit in points leagues. He's a lot like Adam Wainwright. He's not flashy, but he goes deep into his starts. He is pretty efficient, doesn't get a ton of strikeouts. I don't know how many wins he's going to get with the Cubs, but I think he should get a good amount of quality starts, if nothing else. After Stroman, Jazz Chisholm goes, and I am on the board here in round 10. Okay, I am thinking about a few things that I would like to do here. That's kind of fun. All right. Do I want to do it? Man.
You do. Oh, you do, Frank.
I think I want to do it too, Scott.
You never wanted to do anything more than this. Oh,
I'm going to do it. I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to take the chance on Cody Bellinger, who looks absolutely lost in spring training. I think he has something like 20 strikeouts at this point, but it's round 10. It's pick 119. Former MVP. He's still 26 years old. I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope for the best. I needed a second outfielder, and so Cody Bellinger is that guy to go along with Yordan Alvarez. So let's see if he can get back on track. Emmanuel Clase goes here at the end of round 10, and the first pick of round 11 is going to be Justin Turner. I'm going to make my pick, and then we will sign off of hour 1, and then we'll jump into hour 2. I am going to, let me make sure I don't have a third baseman. I don't think I do. I don't have a third. Oh no, I took Bobby Witt. What am I doing?
Don't do it, Frank.
Yeah, so I don't need that guy. I'll leave him for you, Scott. All right, so that
I
allows
wasn't
me
looking at third base yet. I don't know where you were going.
I am going to select Logan Gilbert.
Okay.
One of the breakout starting pitchers I referred to earlier on that I consider with my last pick. So very happy to get him here at the end of round 11. And before we talk about anything more, we're going to sign off here, part 1 on the podcast side, but make sure to listen in to part 2 as well. And we'll be back right after this. Bye-bye. All right, welcome back to part 2 of our live 12-team head-to-head points listener league. I left off the previous hour with Logan Gilbert, I took with the second pick of round 11. And then Luis Severino, who does have SPARP eligibility in this format. That's a starting pitcher as a relief pitcher. And then Luke Voigt, a great pick. The last edition of the Profit Pocket goes here in round 11, 124th overall, which makes a lot more sense than what we've seen in ADP over the past couple of weeks. So
yeah, I don't know where they're getting that data from because it doesn't seem like anybody we're drafting with is letting Voigt slide outside the top 200 still. But I guess data's data, right?
it's coming from somewhere, Scott. And I'll tell you
coming
exactly
from
where.
somewhere. It's coming
And
from
it's
out of
easy.
your
Is he,
ears.
That's
like-
where it's coming from.
Is he like not projected to start somewhere? Like, I don't know. It's hard to make sense of it. It seems like an obvious, and it seemed like everybody agreed when he got traded that it was an obvious opportunity for him to play every day.
Oof. And then we get the back-to-back utility bats. So Franmil Reyes and then Nelson Cruz. Reyes we spoke about on yesterday's podcast as well. Wouldn't surprise me if he earns outfield eligibility, maybe not the first couple of weeks, maybe by the end of April. That wouldn't surprise me. On CBS, you only need 5 starts at a position to earn eligibility in season. So I think we'll get that at some point, probably the first month for Franmil Reyes. And then, Chris, you select Patrick Sandoval. So you're diving in on the breakouts here. First Erod, and now Patrick Sandoval.
Yeah, I mean, this is the format, and generally when we tend to do these head-to-head points leagues, especially when we're actually playing them out, ADP tends to get thrown out the window when it comes to starting pitchers, and so you reach a point about 100th overall, and it's just get your guys. And Eduardo Rodriguez and Patrick Sandoval are two of my guys. If they don't have good seasons, I'm going to have a bad fantasy season.
I'm about to take another of your guys, Chris.
Unacceptable.
A SPARP by the name
Ooh.
of Michael Kopech.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yep, my first reliever. I was waiting, I didn't want to take him when Raisel Iglesias and Manuel Clase were on the board. That just felt hard to justify. So I waited till they went, and then Luis Severino also went. And I was like, oh crap, did I wait too long? Because I'm kind of with Chris now, like with the arm issues Severino's dealing with. Let's move him behind Kopech among the SPARPs. So happy to get him.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good pick.
Look, he's a dynamite arm. I think he's going to be awesome when he pitches. I saw some comments earlier in the offseason from Rick Hahn, who is either their GM or president of baseball operations there. And he was talking about how they want him fresh for the end of the season for a postseason run. So I still think he's going to bounce around a little bit. I think he'll probably get to, 120 innings, something like that, which, I think that'll probably look something like 18 to 20 starts, and then the rest will be in the bullpen. But either way, he's going to be very valuable whenever he starts. So
yeah, well, hopefully, I prefer that's how it plays out, where they have periods where he's on and periods where he's off, and preserve his innings that way, as opposed to a bunch of 4-inning starts. Because if it's a bunch of 4-inning starts, I'm not going to get much value out of that, especially in this format. So I'm hoping he's handled more like, I don't know, like the Brewers handled Freddie Peralta last year. Than I should have an alternate example ready to go if I'm going to go there. But I don't know.
Julio Urias in the past.
Yeah, Julio Urias in the past. Who's a good example from last year? I mean, Tony Gonsolin. I'll go with him.
Yeah.
And it throughout his career hasn't gone very deep into starts when he's been in the rotation.
And after you selected Michael Kopech, Mitch Haniger, I think a great pick at this point as well, 129th overall. Ian Anderson, Edwin Diaz, Luis Garcia of the Houston Astros, that finishes out round 11. And then starting round 12, Matt Chapman and Mitch Garver. I think, again, 2 more great picks here. Chapman, that's a name that I clicked on that I was about to select. Yeah. I was like, oh, wait, I drafted Bobby Witt, who's going to earn third base eligibility. So I still could have selected Matt Chapman. I think he's a fine pick at this point, but I wound up going with Logan Gilbert instead.
In points leagues, we've seen Chapman go very late in the past, like round 15 and beyond. So, maybe I was a little too comfortable waiting on him as somebody sitting here without a third baseman yet. Do you have a third baseman yet, Chris?
Yes, I have Chris Bryant.
So the one most concerned about filling third base early is the one who doesn't have a third baseman yet. Does somebody time out here, or did they just go on autopilot purposely?
I believe they timed out. So I'm writing in the chat to see if they want to stick with that pick. But if I don't hear anything, then Eddie Rosario will be the pick at 135th.
Pretty early,
Right.
but okay. Yeah, so third base, what's left? Adalberto Mondesi, Josh Donaldson, and then a whole DJ LeMahieu. Some people might be into that. And then a whole lot of nothing. So it's like, I don't want to take any of those guys now. Does that mean is somebody else? Am I going to get just continue to like, no matter where you're targeting third base, you're going to have to reach for the guy, with the exception of Jose Ramirez, and arguably with the exception of Rafael Devers and Manny Machado. Though, I've recently moved Devers up into my first round, which some people would consider a reach. So it's just like, there's no way you can get away with just taking a third baseman at face value. I mean, Nolan Arenado might be the closest one in the leagues where he goes round 6 or later.
All right, so we did wind up backing out that pick of Eddie Rosario, and they selected Dansby Swanson instead, and then Kenley Jansen goes. And Scott, you are back up. We haven't checked in on your team in a while, so let's take a look what we've got. I do like, by the way, if anyone's watching here on YouTube, it might be a little distracting, but I like the GIFs that are part of like the team logos. So I've got to find a way to work one of those into mine. I like it. Scott, you have one of those.
I do, yeah. My team name is White Noise, and it's, the static on an old TV when you turn off the Nintendo.
All right, Scott. So you've got Salvador Perez, Josh Bell, Jose Altuve, Bo Bichette, Kyle Schwarber, Brian Reynolds, and then your pitchers: Adam Wainwright, Max Scherzer, Charlie Morton, Yu Darvish for an average age of I would say like 37, and then Michael Kopech. So that brings the average age down a little bit, so helps you out.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go Jack Flaherty here. I don't have an injury stash yet. I came close to drafting Tatis. I came close to drafting Sale. Would have rather drafted Tatis and Sale, but in theory, Jack Flaherty. I think the latest on him is they just discovered a flaw in his mechanics that is responsible for the bursitis he's feeling right now, at least in theory. And they're going to start building him up soon. So hopefully he's back by mid-May, and hopefully he's the high-end pitcher we believe him to be. 2 of the 3 of us, at least, believe him to be.
All right, let's see what has happened. You selected Jack Flaherty, and then Jake Cronenworth, Joey Gallo, and Mike Clevenger, who got.
I thought about taking Clevenger. I wasn't sure if I should. I need some offense still, so I passed on it. But I definitely thought about it.
I thought about Cronenworth. I don't want a bunch of hitters on my bench in this format. Cronenworth is triple eligible. So it's like, if you're going to have anybody on your bench, be great if it's a guy like that. And, Cronenworth last year in this format averaged as many points per game. 2.97 is what he averaged. It was more than Josh Bell, actually, although Josh Bell was obviously held back by his miserable April.
Cronenworth's not on my bench, for what it's worth.
Okay. Yeah.
He's my starting second baseman.
Understandable. But if I had taken him, it would be with, maybe not technically on my bench.
Yeah.
But that would enable me to put like an upside bat on my bench because I already had this versatile guy.
All right, let's catch everybody up. After Clevenger went, then Ryan Presley lasted very long, round 12 here. Someone I consider an elite closer. Then Hyunjin Ryu, Keibert Ruiz went to me. I think this is a format that should play well for him. High batting average, makes a lot of contact. Even if it's not power that he's providing, home runs rather, then I think those will be doubles, which also, again, should play well here. Then Shane Baz and Tyler Stevenson to kick off round 13. Baz, someone that could start on the IL as well, recently got some loose bodies removed from his elbow. They seem optimistic that he'll be throwing in a couple of weeks, but I also think that they'll be cautious. Obviously, a big arm, big prospect, someone they're going to need later on in the season. So I think they will be cautious with one Shane Baz. And I am back up. There are a few things that I'm thinking about. All right,
What you thinking about, Frank?
I don't know. it's tough because I want to talk it through, right? Help. Well, I've got 10 seconds left, so I probably should decide what I want to do.
You better pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of the last elite closers. I just don't know how many closers are gonna have jobs, right? So like we just talked about that on yesterday's podcast as well. Give some bullpen updates. The Giants, the Dodgers, everyone's going by committee. Oof. Talk about that next pick too. I select Jordan Romano, someone I consider again one of those top 8 or 9 elite closers, and I feel very safe about his job. What about the job of Julio Rodriguez? Will he get the job? I don't know, but man, he just went in the 13th round, 147th overall. Has looked very good so far in spring. I read earlier that he made a base running mistake and he struck out 3 times, and I think he lost the ball in the sun. So
Great spring.
not the greatest showing for him on Wednesday, but overall he's been very good.
No, and I think the same rationale for drafting Fernando Tatis kind of applies for Julio Rodriguez, where if it doesn't work out, whatever. What's a round 13 pick in a league where only 250 players are rostered? Could pay huge dividends.
Yeah, he could, be this year's prospect breakout. Go something like 25-15. I mean, if he's up the entire season, I don't think that's crazy. Obviously, that's like the upside possibility for him, but it's there. It is a range in his range of outcomes. After Julio Rodriguez, Carlos Carrasco, then Anthony Rizzo, Aroldis Chapman, and hey, there's another Mariners outfielder with a ton of upside. That's Jared Kelenic. So, I mean, Chris, what do you think? Is the helium getting too far on Julio Rodriguez if he's now going ahead of Jared Kelenic?
I don't know. I mean, they're similarly talented players, and Julio Rodriguez was awesome at his first taste of the minors last season, whereas Jared Kelenic was really, really bad in the majors. So I think it's justifiable, and it's not like Jared Kelenic was really, really good in the high minors, but he wasn't necessarily so much better than Julio Rodriguez that you would say that he's a safer pick. So I don't know. I think it's fine. Like if Rodriguez is going to be on the opening day roster, I would think you probably want to draft the two of them pretty close to one another, but I do still have Kelenic ranked higher, so I'm happy to take him there and snag some upside for my outfield. With the Fernando Tatis pick, I'm kind of playing a hitter short, so I do need to chase some upside there.
All right, and then Scott, very next pick, you select Noah Syndergaard, who made his official spring debut the other day, and he pitched well, but there were reports afterwards that the fastball velocity was 93 to 95 miles per hour, whereas a couple of years ago, he was 97.7. I don't know that we need to overreact too much. It's his first start of the spring. He could get built up as the season goes along. But what do you think? Your overall thoughts here on Noah Syndergaard this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely worth a shot at this point. I don't feel any safer with the other two of that Tommy John trio, Luis Severino and Mike Clevenger. Syndergaard's, other than the velocity thing, Syndergaard's looked the best so far. His secondaries are playing well. And the latest report is they're not going to hold him to an innings limit this year, which they're going to go 6-man a lot of the time because of Ohtani. So maybe the innings limit is kind of already built in for Syndergaard. But with Jack Flaherty being my 5th starting pitcher taken, assuming we're counting Michael Kopech as a reliever, I needed somebody that I could start in week 1, and Syndergaard was the last available in a tier for me. There was a last available player in another tier. There was a last player in a tier at another position, I should say, that I considered instead, hoping he mix it back to me with my next pick.
All right, let's see if that actually happens. The next pick after Syndergaard, Cal Quantrill, who has SPARP eligibility in this format, so you can use him as a relief pitcher. A little bit of a cheat code there on CBS Sports. I don't know how good Cal Quantrill actually is. He was awesome last year. The hard contact suppression was really, really strong for him, but doesn't get a ton of strikeouts. So we'll see how he builds off that here in 2022. After he goes, Randy Arozarena, Jorge Soler, and Ryan Mountcastle. So bit of a run here on outfielders.
You know how this is a listeners league? Because Randy Arozarena just went in round 13. It's
That
not
is
his best format, but even so, like
Yeah.
if we were drafting with other experts around the industry, he would have gone 5 rounds earlier than this, at least.
Yeah, he strikes out quite a bit, but he still averaged 3 fantasy points per game last year.
Yeah.
So
More
he's not
than
a total.
Giancarlo Stanton, for what it's
Yeah,
worth.
he's not a total dud. He's
Yeah.
pretty good. So
Well, I mean, we don't think he's really as good as he was last year, or at least there's a lot of downside there. But
Yeah.
I mean, if he's just who he was last year, it'll be a good value.
all right, and then to kick off round 14, John Means Business, and then Sonny Gray and Anthony DeSclafani. So some starting pitchers off the board. By the way, what I thought you were going to reference, Scott, is you know how this is a listener league, is that Ryan Mountcastle lasted to pick 156. Ooh, we'll talk about it. Mountcastle's ADP is 115.6 over on Fantasy Pros, and he lasts about 40 picks after that. The pick that has Scott up in arms, Seiya Suzuki, someone I considered at my pick as well. He would have been my third outfielder. He had his first home run of the spring on Wednesday. And look, he's striking out a lot right now. I think there's going to be a little bit of a transition period for him. But when he's right, really strong plate discipline, should
Could
walk
be a guy
lot.
who really is good in this format. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I considered him at my pick. And honestly, I looked up and there was 10 seconds left. If I actually thought about it, I might have selected Seiya Suzuki over Jordan Romano. Kind of wish I did. But anyway, here we are, Scott. You've got 10 seconds left.
Yeah, that was the pick. That was the guy at the other position who I wanted to take. I'm going to take Kyle Hendricks because Carlos Carrasco is already gone. And I don't think this is going to be one of those leagues where that forgotten ace trio lasts much deep. I mean, it's round 14, so we're already pretty deep into things, right? Yeah, I'll take Hendricks.
All right, fair enough. And Chris, you are on the clock. We haven't checked in on your team in a while, so let's do exactly that. See what you got going on. You've got Will Smith at catcher, Reese Hoskins, Jake Cronenworth, Chris Bryant, Xander Bogaerts, Mike Trout, and Jared Kelenic in your outfield. Shohei Ohtani at utility. Then you've got Robbie Ray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Dylan Cease, Patrick Sandoval as your starting pitchers. You've got Fernando Tatis on the bench. And now you just selected Aaron Ashby, who has SPARP eligibility, assuming that he actually starts for the Brewers.
Yeah, I mean, he very well may not be in their rotation to start the season, but love the upside of him as a SPARP. Figure I'd chase some upside there as well. There's still enough starting pitchers and relief pitchers who are actual relief pitchers available that I'm not too worried about having someone for that spot if Ashby's not in the rotation to start the season.
I just moved Aaron Ashby into Sleepers 3.0, now available for reading on CBSSports.com.
Yes. Make sure to go check it out. Support all the great writing that Scott and Chris do. I don't write as much as these guys. I don't see how it would be humanly possible to write as much as these guys do. So along with listening and watching the podcasts, make sure to read everything they put out as well. All right. After Aaron Ashby, Blake Trinan, Giovanni Gallegos, Lourdes Gurriel, Eddie Rosario. I mean, okay. Any other players that Frank likes that you guys want to draft right before my pick? One of the hitters I was debating at my last pick was actually Josh Donaldson. So I'm going to go ahead and select him. And I guess I could just play him at third base and leave Bobby Witt as my utility bat if I want to. Or if it makes me feel better, I'll just move Bobby Witt to third base and play Josh Donaldson my util. But anyway, I think he's fine. And StatCast page was awesome last year. He's got to stay on the field. They're talking about him leading off for the Yankees. So he walks a lot, on base percentage, to score a lot of runs. I think he should be very good in this format whenever he plays. Man, this the group of people that are drafting right around me right now
sleeper pitchers are just
absolutely crushing me. So at the turn here, Jesus Luzardo and Tristan McKenzie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's my own fault. I should have just selected one of those guys before Josh Donaldson.
But the thing is, this is the kind of draft where it makes you rethink how you approach your future picks, because there are a couple other sleeper pitchers that I still have in my queue, but given the way they're all coming off the board, can I afford to pass on one of them? I don't know if I can.
I don't know that the quality of hitters, and we had a mock draft, our latest head-to-head points mock draft played out like this, where you reach a point in the hitter rankings and it's just they're all the same. And so everybody starts taking pitchers, and that's That's how we ended up in a league where 252 players are rostered. Our last head-to-head points mock, like Dane Dunning was drafted because like everybody just stopped drafting hitters completely.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're at that point in this draft with maybe a couple exceptions.
All right, we are into round 15 now. Tristan McKenzie, I mentioned the first pick, and then I selected Alex Wood. Alex Wood, like when he's on the field, I do have quite a bit of injury risk on my team, but he was awesome last year when he pitched. So I saw a report. I think maybe I heard it on another podcast. Saris mentioned that the velocity has been up for Alex Wood during spring training, and the Giants get the best out of their starting pitchers. I think they'll do that once again. So one of my rules this draft season, come away with at least one Giants pitcher in every draft. So one of the Alexes, Wood or Cobb, DeSclafani is part of that mix. I'm coming around on Carlos Rodon as well. So please give me at least one Giants starting pitcher. Speaking of the Giants, Jake McGee, 171st overall, and he goes ahead of Camilo Doval. So we were just talking about that yesterday.
I think in this format, because I said on yesterday's podcast, they'd still take Doval ahead of McGee. I think in this format, it makes sense to take McGee first. In this format, Doval shouldn't be taken at all because there's not really any incentive to take a reliever who's not getting you saves right now. If it changes, you can go to the waiver wire. There are always undrafted save sources in a head-to-head points league with only 2 relief pitcher spots. So you just go for the guys who are going to give you immediate help at that position.
All right. Zach Greinke, the next pick here. Scott, remind me, is he part of the forgotten ace trio?
It's a trio, Frank. You got Carrasco, you got Hendricks. Who's the third? It's Zach Greinke.
It's Zach Greinke. All right. And he was just named the opening day starter for the Kansas City Royals. And just after Zach Greinke goes Alex Cobb. I'm sorry, Chris.
That's pretty much all the sleeper pitchers for me.
I might have caused that too because I accidentally name dropped, so I apologize.
Joe Ryan, you're not a Joe Ryan fan? He just went right after. So
well, he's not there anyway.
Yeah.
Joe Ryan, by the way, the fastball velocity has been up a little bit here in spring training. So
wow, 91?
Yeah, I actually think he's up around like 93. Last year it was like 91.8. So he's up like 1.2 miles per hour. But for someone who relies as much as he does on deception, I think every mile per hour can actually help Joe Ryan. So,
well, yeah. I mean, for most pitchers, it helps unless they're really heavy on the secondaries. Yeah. But Joe Ryan absolutely isn't. Joe Ryan is like the fastball. You every time I point this out, Frank, you say, he's got a pretty good slider too. So I'll just preempt that. But like the fastball is the make or break pitch. Nobody knows why it's effective. I've read a theory that it has to do with his arm angle. It's just such an unusual arm angle. But there's not much spin on it. There's not much sink on it. There's not much velocity on it. If for some reason that fastball is super effective and he throws it like 2/3 of the time.
Yeah. So it's actually something that's become more popular in, I think, fantasy baseball and just baseball in general, like sabermetrics the past couple of years is vertical approach angle. And that's something that apparently Joe Ryan and his teammate Bailey Ober, they both excel at. So I tweeted this article out earlier in the offseason. I would encourage everyone to go check it out. It's by John Foley, and it's on twinkietown.com. It's like their SB Nation website for the Twins. And it explains how vertical approach angle, how it helps sneaky fastballs, basically. And Joe Ryan is like the poster child for this. So if you want to learn more about it, I definitely would point you in that direction. After Joe Ryan went, Joe Adell, great pick, Chris. I considered selecting him as well. And this probably isn't his preferred format. He's still going to strike out quite a bit. By the way, in spring training, his strikeout rate is only 22%.
And it was 23% last season. So, I mean, in 30 something games that he played, but yeah, it's sort of like if he's as good as we think he can be, it doesn't really matter. It's like Byron Buxton last season where it's not his ideal format, but if Joe Adell plays like we think Joe Adell can, then it doesn't, the format doesn't matter.
And I'll give everybody a little sneak peek into the Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter, which is coming out later this week. Our buddy Dan Schneier puts that together. Please go to cbssports.com/newsletters and you can sign up for free. He does, put a lot of work into it. And he asked us a roundtable panel discussion. Who is the one hitter that you need to come away with in every draft this weekend? And Joe Adele was that hitter for me. So it looks like that's not going to happen. So unfortunately.
You know who the hitter was for me, Frank?
Oh, he got Scott.
Salvador Perez. Come on.
So I wanted to choose later options because, sometimes the early to mid round picks, it's like you might be at the mercy of where you're drafting at. So it's a little bit tougher. But Joe Adele has been awesome. 3 homers, 3 steals so far in the preseason. He looks very good. After Joe Adele, Scott selected Aaron Savale, then Austin Meadows, Tony Gonsolin, Trevor Bauer, and Zach Gallen. That finishes out round 15. Zach Gallen made his spring debut on Wednesday. I saw that his velo was up across the board, 1 mile per hour on every pitch. So that's a good sign. That's actually very encouraging for Zach Gallen. I think something to pay attention to for him. Round 16 begins with Tarek Skubal, Tommy Edman, and Brendan Rodgers. All right, Scott, you are on the clock. Do you have any idea what you're going to do?
Yeah. I think I know what I want to do.
All right.
I think so, Frank.
Well, I'll let you think about it till we get to your pick.
No,
Chris.
No.
No?
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to ask Chris about Zach Gallen's start here on Wednesday afternoon. I know he's dealing with the shoulder offseason injury last year. He had the elbow and the forearm. What do you take away from Wednesday's performance? Does that give you any optimism when drafting him?
I mean, it's like we've been saying all along. It's the first question with someone like Zach Gallen is he currently healthy? And as of today, it does seem as if Zach Gallen is currently healthy. So that's the first question. It's just the next question is, can he be good? And the fact that the velocity was up is a good sign. Only 3 swinging strikes on 36 pitches overall. All three of them came on the fastball. He really didn't throw his other pitches. I guess 20 fastballs on 36 pitches. That's only like 55%. I guess that's an okay rate. But yeah, I don't think you can learn too much except that he is currently healthy. That's the only real answer we've gotten. But when you get to this point in draft,
supposedly he was healthy for the final 3.5 months last year too. That's like I'm always leery of the guy who there's an inexplicable loss of effectiveness, especially when there's an elbow injury surrounding it. And his whiff rate was down after he returned from that elbow, like way down, one of the worst in baseball. And so, the fact that it's not like he's getting a ton of whiffs this spring, I'm still like, I can't draft Zach Gallen. Like it would have to be one of my last picks if he somehow makes it that long. It's about as confident as I've ever felt a pitcher's going to have Tommy John surgery at some point.
I'm not there. I don't feel comfortable predicting injuries either way, but I think you need to be very skeptical of him at this point. And look, it may still be worth drafting him at this range, but there are other pitchers who I think are probably more worth the gamble given everything going on with Gallen.
All right, let's catch people up. Scott, you selected Adalberto Mondesi.
Got my third baseman, baby.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, obviously this is not his preferred format, but we're in round 16, and I believe that was pick 185. So
I will tell you, Austin Riley averaged 3.06 fantasy points per game last year. You know how many points per game Adalberto Mondesi averaged in the 18 games he played or whatever? 3.07, more than Riley. Yeah. No, he'll be fine in this format if he stays healthy. Obviously, it's not as worth the risk in this format because you don't need stolen bases or whatever, but stolen bases are worth 2 points apiece. So as long as Adalberto Mondesi is healthy, he should be a fine starter for me. It's just, what are the odds of that,
Oh, right. I should probably stop looking up Adalberto Mondesi stats and realize that I'm on the clock. So I'll catch people up there.
So Frank, that look you made, was that for Scott's pick or mine?
That was definitely for your pick. So we're going to talk about that in just a second.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go ahead and select Hunter Renfroe to be my third outfielder. So take that, Scott.
Hello.
Your team.
Hello, Frank. What are you doing to me?
That's sorry.
Fine. You take him. I don't need him. I'm over him.
I was looking up Mondesi's points per game in previous seasons. So All right. He was 2.8 in 2020. He was 3.2 in 2019. So he still was very good. All right. So let's catch people up. After Mondesi, Chris selected Hunter Green, and then Chris Taylor, Casey Mize, Jose Urquidy, strong Urquidy pick. I was looking at him as well. Ty France, I took Hunter Renfroe, and then Corey Knebel. Hunter Green was just named to the opening day roster. He'll be the 4th starter in the Cincinnati Reds rotation to open the season. And Chris, what do you think about the upside here of Hunter Green?
I mean, he throws incredibly hard. He may actually threw 106 innings last season. So even though that was his first, really his first extended run as a professional, he had thrown 68 innings in 2018 before that. But yeah, he was at AA and AAA last season, 31.7% strikeout rate between the two levels, 21 years old at AA and AAA, 22 this season. I don't know. It's upside. That's all it is. It's a super talented pitcher, number 2 overall pick in the draft, who's making the leap to the majors after only 179 innings. Reds seem to think he's ready, and he's really, really talented. So I don't know. Why not take the chance here at this point in the draft, especially when pitching has been so hard to come by? It's why not see if I can get an upside guy there, and then focus on filling out my bench with perhaps more safe picks.
Yeah, I wonder how aggressive they'll be on a per game basis with his innings workload. Will he often go more than 5 innings per start? But in those 5 innings, he could be very good. Again, he throws incredibly hard, 100 miles per hour, apparently has a wipeout slider. And he actually threw more innings last year than I thought. So he's right around, I think it was like 106 innings last year. So, if they want him in the rotation for the entirety of the season, maybe he can get to like 130, 140 innings. I don't think that's crazy for Hunter Green. To kick off round 17.
I think 150 is probably a reasonable, probably closer to the ceiling than the floor, but a 50 inning jump isn't out of the question.
Yeah, he just has to perform. If he does, they're going to leave him in the rotation. If he's not doing so well by the time Castillo and Mike Minor are ready to return, then unfortunately he might be a casualty sent back to the minors. Here in round 17, Randall Grichuk, very strong pick, 193rd overall. I selected John Gray. He's my 7th starting pitcher. He'll be the opening day starter for the Texas Rangers. And then DJ LeMahieu, Yusei Kikuchi, O'Neal Cruz. All right, interesting.
I was getting ready to take him.
In the middle of round 17, still lots of upside.
If I didn't already have Tatis.
Yeah. It's a good point, Chris, because you can only afford to, I guess, stash so many players, right? So you got to keep that in mind.
Tatis is a freebie because he gets to go in the IL spot, so that's nice. But Cruz, you have to have in one of your 5 bench spots, which reduces SP streaming options. You really need him to come up quickly if you're going to invest in him in a head-to-head points league, and there are no guarantees, but hopefully he does. At this point, it's obviously worth the risk.
After O'Neal Cruz, Herman Marquez, who is very frustrating to figure out when you want to pitch him, but he typically does go very deep into his starts. He's a workhorse. So if nothing else, he'll provide innings. I just don't know how great those innings will be. Chris, you're back up here. And you're going with the upside prospect pitchers at this point, and you select Reed Detmers. Tell us about him.
Look, this is exactly what happened in the last head-to-head points draft we did that Scott was talking about earlier, where you would start to see pitchers drafted in this range, and you're like, wow, that's really early for them. But relative to, actual players, like other players available, it's not really that early. So I don't know, like in a 12-team points league, Detmers isn't a must-draft guy, but I like him quite a bit more than most, I think. And let's see, I drafted him 225th overall in that previous one, 199th here. So a little bit of inflation there, but that's fine.
All right. And then next pick, Scott selects Alex Kirilloff. Are you starting Alex Kirilloff, Scotty?
Yeah. Oh, my bench is, I've drafted so many. I have only 2 bench spots left, so I got some lineup to fill out here still. Because I drafted so many, I kept drafting pitchers for a while there. Savale and Hendricks and Syndergaard, they're all technically on my bench.
All right, so Kirilloff is your 3rd outfielder, and then after you selected him, we see Jordan Montgomery, Alex Verdugo, and Mitch Keller, someone who's also been in the news recently. Spring training velocity way up 3 miles per hour on seemingly all of his pitches. And he's looked really good so far. What I really like out of Mitch Keller's spring is that he's only walked one batter. Walks have been, along with many other things, getting hit hard, have been big issues for Mitch Keller. So I like that he's only walked one through 3 starts so far. I think he has either 7 or 8 strikeouts to that 1 walk. So I'm intrigued. He's got the slider, he's got the curveball, and increased velocity here on the fastball. Trent Grisham to finish out round 17. And another prospect, an upside play to kick off round 18, Bryson Stott with the Philadelphia Phillies. He's been playing shortstop, third base in spring training. And Scott, I mean, it's growing more and more likely that Stott might actually be on the opening day roster for them.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, Alec Boehm is a defensive liability, as we talked about, an hour ago at this point. And like he was a disaster at the play last year, and he's been a disaster this spring, at least last I looked. So Stott is, I mean, I kind of think he's the favorite at this point to take the third base job. Boehm has options. They can send him down, have him work on his issues there. And he's a great plate discipline guy, so it makes sense in a points league to take a chance on him.
All right. After Bryson Stott, Jared Walsh. Look, we don't like drafting Jared Walsh, but this is pretty late. 18th round, 206th overall. He still was pretty good last year. He was very good, so I want to give him credit. And
you know what? I think the reports of the Angels looking for a platoon option for him have turned off basically anybody who was on to Jared Walsh, which may be a little bit of an overreaction because part of that story was also we're going to give him another chance against left-handers. But if it goes as poorly as it did last year, we want to have options.
Which is just smart team building.
After Jared Walsh, we see Chris Paddock, who is battling for one of the final rotation spots with the Padres, Mark Melancon. And Scott, you are back up. Do you know who you're going to draft?
I do. I'm going to take another upside play here after doing Kirilloff last time. I'm going to go for Spencer Torkelson.
Ooh.
Who was a high walk guy in the minors and hopefully will continue to be in the majors. I think it's pretty much a done deal. He's going to start for the Tigers at first base this year. And everyone keeps drafting pitchers, so maybe I should have taken one of those instead. Yeah, Mackenzie Gore goes 2 picks later, and I was hoping to get him, but that's fine.
Yep.
And I thought I moved Mackenzie Gore up enough in my rankings, but clearly I didn't because he was not showing up on my page, and I would have rather taken him than the last couple of guys I took. So I will do that now for next time.
Spencer Torkelson, by the way, at 3 different levels last year, here were his walk rates: 17%, 14%, 13%. The OBP at each of those levels, 440, 373, 350. So you're right, Scott. Lots of walks and hopefully lots of home runs as well. After Torkelson, Chris selected Josiah Gray, then Mackenzie Gore, and Zach Plesac, our old friend from last year. Good old Zach Plesac.
Plesac was the number 2 guy in my queue. I like him. I like drafting him this season in a points league late.
Wow, Chris. Such a hypocrite. You didn't even like Zach Plesac.
I know. I am a hypocrite.
I prefer to think of him as more like a hipster. You know, he's into those old trends.
Yeah, but that would be I would have liked Zach Plesac before everyone else did.
You know, do hypocrite and hipster share the same root word? Something to ponder.
Hip.
These guys are crushing me, man. I wanted Riley Green, and he goes 2 picks before me here. I mean, it's just every prospect I feel like has been selected already. So Nick Lotolo, just another one. He might be the 5th starter for the Reds. We don't know that exactly for sure.
Which is interesting because all the prospects were bad last year.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a theory this year is going to be a banner year for prospects, though. I had such a hard time narrowing down that top 10 prospects to stash list after already eliminating.
Feels like it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't do that.
I feel like the bottleneck from 2020 when there was no minor league season is about to be relieved, and it's just going to be a flood of talent.
What a rookie mistake.
What did you do, Frank?
I selected a Tampa Bay pitcher who I did not mean to select,
Oh,
but I will
no.
not undo the pick. This is not a Sean Murphy, Sean Manaea situation. I'll stick with it. I do like Andrew Kittredge regardless, but that is not the player that I wanted to select. I got all flustered because I wanted Riley Green and I got sniped. So that stinks. All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just go ahead and select who I was going to anyway. And I don't know. I'll probably just drop Andrew Kittredge.
It's happened to all of us at this point now.
Yeah. So I wanted Drew Rasmussen because he has SPARP eligibility and
Yeah.
he was actually pretty good for Tampa Bay last year. And looks like he's penciled in as the second starter in their rotation. Again, like their rotation is not very good right now. And I think that they need something out of Drew Rasmussen. And again, he was good and he has RP eligibility. So I'll take the shot.
For what it's worth, I would have totally let you back up that pick. It's hard to draft.
I
and
would
talk
not
at the
have.
same time.
I wasn't even going
No, it
to
would have been
present
fine.
that as a possibility because no, we made Scott stick with it and that's fine. You know, I'll just,
Anybody who tells me
We made
hit the
Chris
wrong
stick
button.
with it.
well, I don't know. There were
that was
Scott-
more
Scott's-
of
No,
a strategic error than a
Yeah.
a process error.
No.
It was.
Disagree.
Didn't you have David Fletcher in
you
your
for-
queue or something like that?
You forgot you already had a player at the position, right? Wasn't that the issue?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
right.
didn't have I only had utility left.
Well, good thing David Fletcher was named the opening day shortstop, Chris. So there you go.
Oh, I mean, look, he's worth drafting in a Roto league.
Is he though?
Not in your utility spot.
Yeah, but not for your
that.
utility spot.
Yeah.
All right, let's catch people up. After my Andrew Kittredge blunder at the end of round 18, Luis Patino and Bailey Ober went. I think the Ober pick is fantastic. He does really nice walk rate last year. He just does not walk anybody. And he's looked pretty good so far in the spring. I selected Drew Rasmussen and then Yuli Gurriel, Scott Barlow, Huascar Noah, Marco Gonzalez, and Chris. Which prospect starting pitcher are you going to select now?
So I was thinking, I think I'm probably actually going to go the opposite direction.
Oh,
Draft a guy that I don't know if I've mentioned on this podcast, but yeah, we're going to go with Corey Kluber.
all right. Hey,
Potential-
also part
gets
of that
potential
Tampa Bay
innings.
rotation. Okay. They need length from some of their starters, and you know,
Yeah.
Corey Kluber is a
He
veteran
wasn't
in that rotation.
Terrible last season. He wasn't like the argument last year about Corey Kluber was like I was anti Corey Kluber because I thought people were hoping he could be really, really good, and I didn't think he could be that. But in a points league, you know, maybe he can give me some decent production when I need him. You know, especially in a 2-start week or something like that. We'll see.
Yes, there's a possibility. A Scott W wrote in the chat, "What a blast, everyone!" And I legitimately was kind of mind blown for a second because I was like, Scott's on the clock. I don't think that he would be writing that. So I guess Scott Wolf, our other Scott W here in the draft. But Scott, you are up. So
Yeah, I'm glad he's just, you know, he's just sharing platitudes basically in the chat room. That's considerate of him. He's not going on a vulgar tirade or anything. Appreciate that, Scott Wolf.
Yes, please don't do that now just because Scott brought it up. Yeah, that'd be great. You selected Nestor Cortez and then Lance McCullers. Not a bad pick at this point. I mean, I don't know if we'll get anything from McCullers, but again, there's 3 IL spots, so not a bad stash opportunity. Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah.
If he just plays, I don't know. Let's say the Blue Jays have 6 games in a week. He catches 2 of them, DHs the other 2. If he gives you 4 games, I'm happy. And this is a format where he should be really good in.
I'm beginning to reach like salivation levels of desire for Alejandro to the point that I briefly had the thought, can I take him for my bench even though I have Salvador Perez? And obviously I can't. That's just, you don't have the roster space for that in a head-to-head points league. But
You know, when you said salivation levels, I thought you were going to say Salvador Perez.
Salvi levels of desire. That almost works. Yeah.
Well, I guess the only format where you would wind up with him, Scott, is a 2-catcher league, right? Because
No.
I mean,
Well, if I drafted Salvador Perez, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if I
that's
miss
what I
out
mean,
on Salvador Perez, he's probably, I'd say Alejandro Kirk, for where he generally goes, is the most likely catcher for me to draft if I miss out on Salvi. There's a chance I'll draft somebody before then if I like the value, Mitch Garver or Dalton Varsho, somebody like that. But most likely it's going to be Salvi, who I'm tempted. I think I'm going to go ahead and move him up in my rankings to right behind Garver, 8th at the position.
All right. Let's see what else has happened after Alejandro Kirk, JUAN Moncada, Ryan McMahon that finishes out round 19, and then Taylor Rogers. Taylor Rogers, the hype is growing. The ADP for those who play in roto leagues or high stakes leagues has been way on the rise. So lots of optimism for Taylor Rogers. Then Christian Javier, Kyle Gibson, Steven Matz, and Scott, you are back up. Let's see. I would imagine you only have bench spots to fill at this point.
No, I don't. I have a relief pitcher spot.
Oh, okay.
And I think I'm going to fill it. I kind of wanted to wait till the end just on principle, but all the Sparps are gone that are worth drafting. And, you know, I can't lean on Dylan Floro anymore because he's not going to be healthy to start the year. I can't lean on Joe Barlow either, it turns out. Scott Barlow's still fine, but Joe Barlow. Yes. Oddly, Chris Woodward, we didn't have a direct quote, I don't think, but the Rangers beat writer for MLB.com in one of those predicting the opening day roster pieces, she said that Chris Woodward, because expectations are higher for the Rangers now, he doesn't want Joe Barlow in the closer role. He'd rather go with a veteran there, which I'm not sure I follow that logic and how high are the expectations really. But I mean, Joe Barlow's not interesting except for the fact that he'd be getting saves. So.
Yeah, no, I saw that exact report just either earlier today or yesterday, and I'm happy you brought that up. So I think we all need to collectively lower Joe Barlow and our expectations for him this season.
I still think he's the top Rangers reliever to draft because the alternatives are like Spencer Patton and Greg Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how likely are they to keep the role? But yeah, I mean, it's a mess. It's kind of like the Pirate situation where it's a mess of not very good options for a not very good team.
Yeah.
All right. I am not going to change my positions because just in case these two gentlemen ahead of me are watching on YouTube, they've been crushing me all draft. So I don't want them to have any indication of what I'm going to do here because, again, it's been rough.
Did we mention I drafted Matt Barnes? I'm not sure I actually said the name of the reliever I drafted.
I don't think that you did, but yes.
Okay. For the podcast audience, it was Matt Barnes.
By the way, look, if either of you guys are interested in Andrew Kittredge, like, I will legitimately trade him. So before I drop him, I'll just kind of throw him out there in case anyone wants to trade me for Andrew Kittredge. I still like him. Maybe I'll just hold him. I don't know. I really want to play a Sparp, but maybe Drew Rasmussen isn't even that good. We'll see. After Scott selected Matt Barnes, Chris took Lou Trevino. I saw a report recently that they believe he will be the first one up there for saves, which is what we mostly expected. We've heard some rumblings about Lou Trevino, about AJ Puck, then Gary Sanchez, Elias Diaz, Edward Cabrera, and the pick that I wanted was Steven Strasburg, and he goes one pick for me.
He's set to make his Grapefruit League debut, right?
We have IL spots available, so I figured, hey, why not, just use one of them? And if I could get anything out of Strasburg, that would be great. But alas,
was not to be.
They have just been crushing me this entire time. So there is actually one more Sparp eligible player I learned about today.
Oh, I overlooked somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good call.
Nick Martinez is, I think he's basically wrapped up the 5th starter job for the Padres. They gave him some money this offseason. He's returning from Japan where apparently he reinvented himself. He's looked really good in spring training. I think he threw like 4 more scoreless innings on Wednesday. He's going to have a job and he has Sparp eligibility in this format. So I think, this late, take a shot. Him, Drew Rasmussen, see what happens.
It's a 4-year commitment they made to him. So, they must be pretty convinced to give him a 4-year deal. I think skepticism is warranted. And with Mackenzie Gore coming on, they have alternatives. The Padres do. But, I agree. Nick Martinez.
There's another Sparp out there.
Uh-oh.
Let me see if I can find him now. Oh, no. I think I know who you're talking about. And if it is who I'm thinking about, oh, well, actually, that person's interesting too. All right. Well, maybe you'll select him, Chris, and then we could talk about him. Or I'll just
I'm not going to select him. But
is he somebody who's supposed to be in the rotation, or?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, there is quite a few.
He was in the rotation last year too.
Okay. Yeah, there is a few here that I noticed.
At least one.
There's one who's not very good. Is it that one?
We'll talk about him once the draft is over. We're in the
I
final
mean,
round.
it's 242nd overall, so chances are none of them are very good.
Well, you know,
Yes.
but there are like Nate Pearson's out there. He has a lot of upside, but he doesn't have a spot. There's Carlos
there
Hernandez,
might
who's not
be-
very good.
Yeah, that's
Is it Carlos Hernandez?
That's one of 3. I think
Okay.
there are 3 Sparps left who will likely be in a rotation to start this year.
Okay.
Yes.
Because like Alec Mills and Jose Quintana are probably in their respective rotations,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
Not,
They're
wor-
not.
yeah. Who's drafting them?
Same thing for Zach Thompson with the Pirates and
Zach
then-
Thompson's not totally without interest.
Oh,
Then-
good job there, Frank. I didn't think of Matt Brash. Boy, that's, you know, I hadn't completely updated my starting pitcher rankings before
I
this draft.
updated
just
them
ran out of time.
I updated them just before, Scott. I was like,
Yeah.
I was scrolling through ADP. I was like, all right, let me find all of the hype guys throughout spring, all the prospects. And I just went and moved them all up the rankings. And
Mhm.
Matt Brash, awesome slider, throws mid to upper 90s fastball. I think he's going to be the 5th starter in the Mariners rotation to open the season. I think he's earned that. He's looked good in the spring. And yeah, he's someone that comes with intrigue. So I'm drafting him late, very late in my drafts. I don't know if I mentioned these 2 picks. Camilo Doval went 240th, and then Jamison Tyone to kick off round 21. I took Matt Brash, and then Brandon Belt. If you need a utility hitter at this point, he should be very good, as should be Connor Joe. I love him. I guess not enough to draft him, though.
You know, I've heard some scouts think Matt Brash's personality fits better in the closer's role.
Is that are you making?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. That's
didn't know how I
what-
wanted
yep,
to-
That's what it is. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep. Just
didn't
a dumb joke.
All right.
Yep.
That was like a. I was gonna say like that's a dad joke, and I was like, yeah, you know, Chris is like technically he's like a cat dog dad, so something.
I'm an uncle.
That makes sense. After Connor Joe, Luis Arias, who will open the season on the IL due to a quad injury, still could be very good in this format. He had a double-digit walk rate last year, and obviously Chris and I had a lot of intrigue in him.
Yeah.
Before getting hurt, and then Kid Brian Hayes. Chris, you selected Eliezer Hernandez. He's having a very strong spring. I debated him or Matt Brash with my pick, actually.
Yeah, I think Eliezer Hernandez is pretty interesting in this format. Obviously, he's probably not going to get you very many quality starts at all because he very rarely pitches deep into games. But we're going quite deep at starting pitcher, and I've taken a lot of weird flyers. So getting as many darts on the board as I can at starting pitcher in this league. Fernando Tatis is my only bench hitter.
Yeah, I think both Scott and I only have pitchers on our bench, so that's
Yeah.
typically the case in these head-to-head points leagues.
Yeah, I mean, Flaherty's going to go on the IL for me right away, obviously, and maybe I'll pick up a bat then. But
Yeah, I think I'm going to put Tatis on the IL and pick up a bat, hopefully.
right. So I just
And there will be good ones available.
I'm a little surprised Andrew Heaney was still available, just because there are some people who are really, really into drafting him. He's shown good bat missing ability in the past, but just got clobbered by home runs, and they're hoping the
He's on the
Dodgers
now.
can work with their magic on him. And they've been trying to teach him this breaking ball that they teach a lot of their pitchers. They call it a sweeper. I don't know what it's technically classified as. This sweeping breaking ball that I know just the report of that kind of renewed enthusiasm throughout the fantasy industry for Andrew Heaney. I'm majorly skeptical, but nobody else wanted him, so I guess I'll see if everyone else is right about him.
Well, there it is. I mean, it's
yeah.
round 21, Scott. So
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
there's no risk
Exactly.
if he's bad his first couple of runs through the rotation, and you'll just drop him anyway. And how did we finish this one out? Taijuan Walker, Gregory Soto, Eduardo Escobar, and Mr. Irrelevant, Nick Pivetta. All right, so there we are. Listener League number 1, head-to-head points in the books. We got a little bit of time here left, so let's quickly run through each of our teams. Not everyone's team, but each of us 3, and then we'll wrap it up. Scott, we'll start with your squad. You've got Salvador Perez, Josh Bell, Jose Altuve, Adalberto Mondesi, and Bo Bichette in your infield. Then Kyle Schwarber, Alex Kirilloff, Brian Reynolds, and Spencer Torkelson as your outfield and utility bat. Then you've got Adam Wainwright, Scherzer, Charlie Morton, Yu Darvish, Jack Flaherty as your starters. Of course, you'll throw Flaherty on the IL to start the season. And then you've got Matt Barnes, Kopech at relief pitcher. Your bench filled with pitchers: Noah Syndergaard, Andrew Heaney, Kyle Hendricks, Aaron Savale, and Nestor Cortez. What do you think?
I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with that. You can tell the 3 spots in my hitter lineup where I'm just like, okay, there isn't any hitters. There aren't any hitters worth taking anymore. So I'm just going to keep taking pitchers for a while. But I filled those spots with upside plays and Adalberto Mondesi at third base, and then Kirilloff in the outfield, Spencer Torkelson at utility. If they live up to their potential, they'll be great starters for me. If they don't, there's going to be an abundant waiver wire to turn to. So I feel like having 6 solid hitters in those 9 spots and a better catcher than anybody, of course, in Salvador Perez. I feel like it's strong, and I feel like for maybe the ways where I was willing to take a hit in that starting lineup, my pitching staff, the strength of it shows up. We did a head-to-head mock draft a while ago where my lineup looked kind of weak, and I wasn't sure the pitching staff looked strong enough to make up for it. But I think this one does. I mean, Scherzer, Morton, Darvish, great top 3. All of them have, any of them could compete for the Cy Young Award this year, and I don't think anybody bat an eye at that. Adam Wainwright is the 4. I reached for him a little, but I think he's undervalued. He was a top 10 pitcher in this format last year. Flaherty, of course, has upside, and while he's gone, Syndergaard will fill in for him. And even on my bench, I have pitchers who, Kyle Hendricks and Aaron Savale, I think, are both great values in this format since they go so deep into games. And obviously volume counts for a lot at starting pitcher. So, yeah, I'm really happy with this team.
All right. Yeah, I think the top 3 starting pitchers there, really like it. Wainwright makes sense for this format. The bench, you've got Hendricks and Savale, who both respectively go very deep into their starts. So, I think it works out. You'll be able to fill in there while Jack Flaherty's on the IL. I think it's a pretty good team. I was just thinking about my pitching staff, and we'll get to it in just a little bit. It's not feeling great about the pitching staff. Let's take a look at Chris's team. He's got Will Smith as his catcher, Rhys Hoskins, the pocket, respect, Jake Cronenworth, then Chris Bryant, Xander Bogaerts in your infield, Mike Trout, Joe Adell, Jared Kelenic, and Shohei Ohtani. I just realized you have 3 Angels hitters on your team.
It's pretty Angels stack.
And the Angels win the pennant.
And then for your pitchers, you've got Robbie Ray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Dylan Cease, Hunter Green, and Patrick Sandoval as your starters. You've got Aaron Ashby and Lou Trevino as your relievers. On the bench, Kluber, Tatis, Eliezer Hernandez, Reed Detmers, Josiah Gray. Chris, just reading through now, I was like, it looks like there's something missing. And then I got to the bench and I remembered you have Fernando Tatis.
Yeah, there's a pitcher missing, I think. And it's because of Fernando Tatis. If it wasn't for Fernando Tatis, I probably would have just taken a pitcher in that range, and then it would look a lot better. But, for having Fernando Tatis, I think the lineup is incredibly strong. The weakest spots are Jake Cronenworth, who's a really valuable piece that I can move into 3 different spots in the lineup, which is super valuable when you look at the bench that I have, which doesn't have any hitters. And then 2 huge upside outfielders in Jared Kelenic and Joe Adell are my other weak spots. And I think at least one of them is going to be very good, potentially both of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the pitching staff.
You'd rather go with an upside play like that, not you specifically, but just the audience. You'd rather go in a format this shallow. You'd rather take the shot on upside than go with like a Hunter Renfroe. As much as I like Hunter Renfroe, the upside is only so high.
Well, and you look at the bench or the guys who are available on waivers, and like Robbie Grossman, Michael Brantley, Avisail Garcia, Charlie Blackmon, Dylan Carlson, like any of those guys could be a fine starter if Joe Adell and Jared Kelenic flop. So that's why I was aiming for upside with those guys.
Now you got me rethinking my Hunter Renfroe pick too, Scott. Oh, man.
You got him pretty late.
Hey, he could get first base eligibility. So.
Oh, is that a thing? Is that happening?
Yeah, he's been working out at first base in spring.
Nice. All right,
that's something I saw. But yeah, no, it's the reason I took so many pitchers and so many upside pitchers, at least in my eyes, is because I'm going to need, someone to step up at starting pitcher to make up for the fact that I did take Fernando Tatis at a spot where I would prefer to have a starter available. It's just, that may not happen until June.
Yep. You made that sacrifice, but hey, it's something that we were all considering. At least Scott was, something that I was thinking about doing as well. We've got 3 IL spots in this league. So you'll stash Fernando Tatis and so whenever he returns, hopefully in June. All right, let's take a look at my team here before we wrap up. I've got Keibert Ruiz as my catcher, then Vladimir Guerrero, Jorge Polanco, Josh Donaldson, Wander Franco as my infield. Then I've got Hunter Renfroe, Cody Bellinger, Yordan Alvarez, and Bobby Witt as my outfield and util. I originally drafted Bobby Witt to be my third baseman, and then Josh Donaldson just lasted a long time, so I wound up drafting him as well.
There's a good chance Witt will be your third baseman at some point.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And I'll either drop Donaldson, use him at util, or I don't know,
Or
find whoever is hot.
Have him
Put him in an IL
spot.
spot is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Come on, guys. Dunking on my Yankees. Come on. My starting pitchers. I've got Zach Wheeler, Justin Verlander, Chris Bassett, Shane McClanahan, Logan Gilbert. My relievers, Andrew Kittredge, Jordan Romano.
Best pick of the draft.
And then on my bench, all pitchers, Alex Wood, John Gray, Nick Martinez, Drew Rasmussen, and Matt Brash. Just looking at it now, I think it's all right. I wish I had a little bit more quality depth at starting pitcher up top. I like Wheeler and Verlander. Again, Bassett was the high floor play to kind of complement Shane McClanahan and Logan Gilbert at the time. Obviously those two guys have breakout potential. I love the hitters that I came away with. I think, some of these guys might be a little bit too, boomer bust. Keibert Ruiz, Bobby Witt. Let's see what those guys can do. Wander Franco in year 2. It's a fun team. I think it's a little bit more boomer bust than I'm used to.
I think it's good. I think it's good. I like all 3 of our teams. I think we did a good job despite drafting against people who we knew were going to mimic us. It wasn't so bad. It wasn't so well. I don't know. You seem to have a hard time with it, Frank, at your end of the draft.
It
wasn't ideal, and I ended up with a lot of guys who I usually don't draft as a result of it. But that'll happen. Like this is the first time I've taken Dylan Cease. But that'll happen when your guys are getting drafted.
Hey, and that's exactly what Scott led off this entire draft by saying. He said, things are going to get wacky. We might draft players that we're not used to because for that exact reason. Obviously, these listeners are paying attention and they like a lot of the same players as we do. All right, we're going to wrap there. If you're still watching or you're watching this on demand afterwards on YouTube, let us know in the comments whose team you like best between Scott, Chris, and myself. And we're going to wrap there for those two. I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball Today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.